Hello everyone, and welcome to part 4 of What If Sonic and Blaze Swapped Places. This is a part of a series, so if you missed the first 3 parts, you can go check the other videos down in the description of this video. The link to the artist's Twitter will also be down there, so check them out if you like these designs. They're really cool. Also, if you like this content, consider subscribing or even becoming a member to get access to my content early. Last time, we finally met Prince Sonic from the Soul Dimension, and he decided to stay with Blaze for a while for a vacation after their scuffle. Of course, he is a very busy person, being Prince and all, so after only a few days, he announced that he needed to return to his empire. Blaze and Amy see him off, and they all part on good terms. But once Sonic arrives back in the empire, he realizes that something is wrong almost immediately. He can't describe exactly what it is that has him so on edge, but he can just feel that something's wrong in the air. He dashes back to the royal palace immediately and asks what's going on, and they tell him that nature is seemingly falling apart. Strange anomalies are popping up all over the place. Portals to strange areas appearing and disappearing, people being sent hours into the future or past at a moment's notice. Sonic decides to investigate immediately. He takes the Soul Emeralds and sets off, eventually finding the source of the corruption, an area where the anomalies were the most concentrated. He doesn't know what to do, but Sonic knows he has to do something. He can't simply allow his world to be endangered like this. So Sonic relies on his instinct, and he pulls on the power of the Soul Emeralds. He ascends to his super form, Tempest, and uses their power to rewrite the very fabric of space-time in the area, performing a technique very similar to, but not the same as, Chaos Control. Quick note, this is something we haven't directly seen the Soul Emeralds do, but there's no reason to assume that they couldn't do something like this. The Soul Emeralds are very analogous to the Chaos Emeralds in terms of power, both in scope and seemingly in type, so I don't think it's that crazy to say that Sonic would be able to do this if the situation called for it. Anyway, after using the Soul Emeralds to fix the Soul Dimension, Tempest ends up caught between dimensions, in a colorless void that he can't quite describe. He uses what little power he has left to find his way to the most familiar thing nearby, and ends up making his way to solid ground just before he loses his super form and everything goes black. Some time later, Sonic comes to. He's in the destroyed rubble of a city, everything burning around him. Sonic's not sure what to do, but before he can come up with a plan, he feels that something's off once again. He instinctively checks the Soul Emeralds and discovers that they've gone gray. They've lost their power, tainted by some mysterious force. This means that Sonic won't be able to use their power to return to the void he was just in and hopefully find his way home. Sonic is upset, but there's no reason to dwell on things that can't be changed. Instead, Sonic takes the opportunity to scope the area. With his speed, he's able to cover huge amounts of ground in mere moments, and he's horrified by what he finds. Everywhere he goes, it's more of the same. Destroyed city after destroyed city, ruined landscape after ruined landscape. The entire planet seems to have been burnt to the ground. The decayed cities around the area tell a clear story of a civilization in collapse, and Sonic can't help but wonder what could have possibly caused this much devastation. He gets his answer soon enough. He happens across a giant monster made of lava and fire, and in front of it is a silver hedgehog fighting against the beast. Sonic just leaps into action, attacking the beast with all of his might. The other hedgehog tells Sonic to stop, but after seeing Sonic in action for a moment, he realizes that Sonic is more than capable of keeping up with him. The pair work together to defeat the monster and then begin talking. Sonic asks him if he's alright, and the other hedgehog nods. Silver introduces himself, and Sonic follows suit and introduces himself as Prince Sonic. Silver says that's cool and stares at Sonic blankly, to which Sonic asks Silver if he knows what a prince is, and Silver shakes his head. Sonic just sighs before asking Silver what it was they just finished fighting. Silver explains what IBLIS is, at least in the broadest of strokes. Silver says that he doesn't know why IBLIS appeared, and no one will tell him. And also that no matter how many times IBLIS is defeated, it just comes back. Sonic nods and says he'll try to help. He then brings up the Soul Emeralds and explains their importance, as well as what's wrong with them. Silver obviously doesn't know any more than Sonic does, but he agrees to help Sonic anyway. Silver shows Sonic the way back to his home, at least the closest thing he has to one at the moment, and the pair remain cautiously optimistic for their future. Back in the present, Blaze is thinking about how often the world has been in peril lately. Once again, Blaze thinks that there just has to be a better way to handle all of this. As much as she hates the things Gunn had done in the past, she thinks that they still had some good ideas, mostly in terms of organization. Blaze wants a more organized front when working against Eggman, essentially something like a Justice League or Avengers style response team, and she runs this idea by Miles and Amy. They both think it's a great idea, and Miles says he thinks he knows where they can get some solid funding without tying them down to any particular nation's interest or any other political nonsense like that. Amy wants to work with Blaze, obviously, and Miles says that he'll provide them tech support whenever he can. Blaze then gets in contact with Rouge and Shadow and floats the idea by them and asks if they'd like to help out. Rouge says that she thinks the entire setup is, quote, adorable, and Shadow just rolls his eyes at the idea, but they both say that they'll at least keep an ear out for them. That's basically all Blaze was expecting from them, to be fair. Rouge is still working for Gunn at this time, but Shadow is mostly working as a free agent as he is currently in canon, rather than working for Gunn like he was at the start of 06 in canon. Finally, Blaze decides to get in touch with one last group of people, the Chaotix. While they were a bit goofy, the Chaotix clearly had skills both in terms of fighting and detective work. Blaze's new agency needed manpower above anything else at this point anyhow, and the Chaotix were ecstatic at the idea of having a consistent paycheck for once. After just a few short weeks, Blaze's new anti-Eggman defense force was fully operational, with a new headquarters in Central City. It doesn't take long for their first operation to begin. Vector and Espio got wind of Eggman moving his assets to Soliana, which, while not that important on its own, the Eggman Empire moved robots and whatnot all over the place quite frequently. This was an area that was far outside of Eggman's usual strongholds. Soon, Rouge gets wind of this and tells Blaze that Gunn is sending her on a mission to Soliana as well, to recover a very powerful artifact from an Eggman base. While not direct confirmation of anything, these two pieces of information certainly suggest that Eggman's latest attempt to conquer the world will be set in Soliana. With both of these pieces of information in mind, Blaze decides to head to the country to make sure that Eggman can't get up to anything before she has the opportunity to stop him. Blaze also sends word to everyone else working under her about what's going on. She has Amy tag along with her to stop Eggman and orders the Chaotix to watch after things around the base while they're out of the country. Shadow gives them word that he'll be in Soliana as well, making moves to take down Eggman on his own terms. That night, while Rouge is making her way to Soliana via covert means, Knuckles has a strange dream. He's approached by Tikal again, something he thought wasn't possible. Tikal explains that her connection to the Master Emerald has allowed her to sense something strange going on in the fabric of the universe. Paradoxes, distortions, and anomalies were running rampant, and it all stemmed from Soliana in the near future. Knuckles would be needed to help stop this threat to the world. Knuckles doesn't quite understand what all of that means, but he knows there's someone messing up stuff in Soliana that he needs to go beat up, and that's good enough for him. Blaze is the first to arrive in Soliana, simply running there with her incredible speed. Amy is there soon after, taking a plane across the ocean, but making the rest of the journey on foot. Since they're there early, Amy insists on spending some time with Blaze while they're in Soliana, and while Blaze protests, she can't come up with a good enough reason to deny Amy, so she gets dragged on yet another impromptu date with the girl. While they're on their quote-unquote date, they get an SOS signal from Rouge. She had apparently run into trouble on her mission. The pair are ready to go help her, but Shadow interrupts them over their comms. Shadow says that he's closer to Rouge's location and he can just use Chaos Control to teleport there, as he has a Chaos Emerald handy anyway. They ask if Shadow thinks he'll need backup, and he makes a comment about being the ultimate life form before ending communication. Blaze and Amy just decide to enjoy their day for now. Shadow and Rouge are probably tough enough to handle whatever Eggman's going to throw at them on their own, and if not, They'll message them for backup if necessary. Not too long after, Shadow is making his way through Eggman's base with ease. He's able to find Rouge in no time, and when he does, he notices that she has a strange object with her. Rouge tells him it's the Scepter of Darkness, which is what Gunn had sent her to retrieve. They begin to make their way out of the base when Eggman himself appears. He summons a swarm of badniks and orders them to attack the pair. They of course manage to escape, but the Scepter of Darkness is damaged in the process. As they make their way to an abandoned area, power leaks out of the scepter, and soon a strange creature in the shape of Shadow appears. They demand to know who he is, and the creature just laughs and says that they really should recognize him by now. Then he introduces himself as Mephiles and says that the pair would be an issue for him if they stayed around, and that he'll just deal with them later. With a snap of his fingers, he summons a strange black orb that sucks Rouge into it. Shadow is able to resist its pull and attacks Mephiles, saying that he'll end him on the spot. Mephiles laughs and says that Shadow won't have long if he wants to go where Rouge is, and that she's not likely to last long without him. He asks Shadow what's more important, revenge or saving his friend. As angry as Shadow is, he knows the answer. He follows Rouge through the portal, leaving Mephiles behind. The next day, the day of the Festival of the Sun, Blaze begins her day by sending word to all of the people working at her agency. While most everyone responds quickly, Shadow and Rouge not only don't respond, the message isn't even delivered. They were able to stay in communication before while they were in the Eggman base, so suddenly going no contact was very strange. Blaze tells Amy about this, and they both decide they need to try and find them both. Blaze is worried about Soliana though, and she doesn't want to leave it behind in case of an attack considering the festival is later today. She decides to stay behind and protect the city and have Amy go to the base to search for the pair. A few hours later, Blaze runs into Knuckles while patrolling the city. Knuckles explains his weird vision from Tikal, and Blaze explains what's happening in Soliana. Knuckles says that he'll help protect the city for now. He's used to guarding stuff. At the same time, a ways away, Amy has arrived at the Eggman base. There are clear signs of a struggle, which she can easily attribute to Shadow and Rouge, but there are still relatively few badniks around. There isn't enough destruction for all of Eggman's badniks to have been destroyed, so Amy figures that they must be on the move. Their theory about Eggman attacking today seems to be getting more and more likely. However, there's still absolutely no sign of Rouge or Shadow anywhere. Amy is puzzled by this. It doesn't seem like they'd been injured or possibly worse. There are no remains anywhere, even where it's clear that they fought. It's like they just disappeared into thin air. Perhaps Shadow used Chaos Control to warp them away, but then why hadn't they gotten in contact with Blaze? No matter how Amy looked at it, it just didn't quite add up. Amy decides to report all of this back to Blaze, telling her over the phone just in time for the Festival of the Sun to begin. That's also when Eggman makes his move. He attacks the city as the festival begins, his badniks terrorizing the surrounding area and easily overpowering the city guards. Of course, they're no match for Knuckles and Blaze, who make quick work of any badniks they find as they patrol the city. Blaze eventually notices that the badniks all seem to be heading to one particular location. She directs Knuckles in that direction, and they happen across Eggman attempting to kidnap Princess Elise. They have a fight and are able to drive Eggman off, but they hear a few things he says during their scuffle. He mentions something about the flames of disaster and claims that they're inside of Elise, which no one understands. Once they defeat Eggman, Blaze asks Elise what the doctor was talking about. Elise says that she's never heard of anything like that before, but that she'll look into it personally. Blaze says that she figured Elise would have someone else do that stuff for her, but Elise laughs and says that she likes to take charge. They all have a conversation, and Blaze and Knuckle discover that Elise is an open and lively person, very honest with her feelings. Turning our focus back to the future, Silver and Sonic are running around searching for some way to seal IBLIS away forever. After a few more encounters with the Beast, Silver expresses his frustration that they've never been able to deal with IBLIS permanently. Suddenly, a voice speaks behind them. They turn to see Mephiles going on a speech about IBLIS's true origins. He says that he knows of a way to get rid of IBLIS forever. However, it will require them doing something horrible, something they'll find difficult to forgive themselves for. Both Silver and Sonic are confused, but when Mephiles asks if they want him to explain more, they both nod. Mephiles teleports them somewhere else, and he begins to explain where IBLIS came from. Mephiles says that IBLIS was created by something called the Solaris Project, an attempt to bring the god of the sun into being. However, all it created was a demon. IBLIS was incredibly powerful, and through that ritual, it had been unleashed onto the world permanently. They can't stop IBLIS from ever having existed, but they can do the next best thing. Destroy it before it ravages the world. You see, before IBLIS went on its rampage, it was sealed inside a vessel. That vessel, the IBLIS Trigger, is someone that Sonic already knows. Mephiles shows the pair a vision of the IBLIS Trigger, and Sonic recognizes them as Blaze. Mephiles continues and says that while they can't destroy IBLIS directly, if IBLIS's host dies, IBLIS will die along with them. If they can kill Blaze before IBLIS is released from her, the future will be saved. Sonic immediately objects to this plan, saying that he knows Blaze and that this whole IBLIS thing never once came up. Mephiles counters and asks what special abilities Blaze had. Sonic says slowly that she could summon fire. Mephiles then asks Sonic if he has any idea where she got those abilities from, and Sonic admits that no one had any idea. Finally, Mephiles asks about Blaze's origin, her parents. Sonic says that Blaze claimed to be an orphan. She never knew her parents. She grew up completely alone. Mephiles says that's because she lost her parents during the Solaris Project. They barely had time to seal IBLIS inside of Blaze before IBLIS destroyed the world, and after the demon was sealed away, they abandoned Blaze in the wilderness on an uncharted island and assumed that she would have passed. The fact that the island residents would look after Blaze long enough for her to grow up was something they hadn't planned on. It had been a mistake that they needed to correct. Sonic still can't believe it and says that there has to be another way, a better way. Silver is more amicable to what Mephiles is saying. While the idea of killing someone to save the world didn't quite sit right with him, he also didn't feel like he had much of a choice. It was one life versus the entire world. The choice was kind of obvious. Sonic understands the logic, but he believes that he can do better, especially because it's Blaze, someone who has incredible power and who means a lot to him. Silver and Sonic argue about what they should do, and Sonic says that they shouldn't trust Mephiles, but Silver is unswayed. He insists that he has to do anything he can to save the world and accepts Mephiles' offer. Sonic isn't willing to use force to stop Silver, but he tells Silver to be careful that he doesn't make a mistake. Silver says that he won't do anything he isn't sure he wants to, and with that, Mephiles and Silver travel back to the past. Elsewhere in the future, Rouge and Shadow are looking around the wasteland for, well, just about anything of use. They're still not sure what's happened or where they even are. After enough time searching, they find something strange. Omega. He's powered down, though still operational, and Rouge turns him back on and the pair ask him what's happened. Omega explains what's going on, and Rouge and Shadow are shocked. They decide they need to find a way back to the past immediately. They ask Shadow about Chaos Control, and while he does have a Chaos Emerald on him, traveling back 2,000 years was far beyond what one Emerald could do. He says that he's not sure if more than one Emerald would even be enough. At that point, Omega says that he has records of Eggman creating blueprints for a time machine. He has no idea if it was ever finished, but it's their best bet. With that, the group at least have a goal in mind, and they allow Omega to guide them towards the base where Eggman was working on the time machine. Returning to the present, Mephiles and Silver arrive through their portal. Mephiles tells Silver that Blaze is within the city and disappears, leaving Silver alone in Soliana. Silver is completely lost, and beyond that, he's also astounded by everything he sees. This is the first time Silver has seen a world that's not completely destroyed, and he's mesmerized. Silver's determination to protect the future is renewed, but he still has no idea where Blaze is. While searching around the city, Silver runs into Amy, as in canon. They both say that they're searching for someone, and Amy says that she would accompany him, but she's searching outside of the city. Remember, Amy is looking for Shadow and Rouge right now, not Blaze, because she already knows where Blaze is. Silver says that that's fine, but he appreciates the offer, and he hopes that he runs into Amy again soon, and the pair parts ways. From there, Silver is able to track down Blaze. Once he does, he stops her and says that they need to have a talk. Blaze has no idea what's going on and is generally confused as to what all of this is about. Silver explains that he's from the future and he's here to save the world. He explains everything Mephiles told him, and Blaze honestly has a pretty hard time taking him seriously. It's all just too much, even for someone who has seen a lot of wild things in her life. But the main thing that throws her off is this IBLIS business. She's never heard of IBLIS by name at this point, and she knew her own powers very well. They certainly weren't the doing of this demon Silver talked about, and the idea that her flames that she used to save countless lives were its doing and not her own was offensive. Blaze blows Silver off and says that whatever's going on, it has nothing to do with her. The two begin to argue, but before anything can happen, Mephiles appears before them. He explains that he's the one who brought Silver into the past and that everything that Silver has said so far is true. He demonstrates his power and knowledge, saying things about Blaze that she hasn't ever told anyone. Mephiles says that Blaze feels like something is deeply, deeply wrong with the world and herself. That her mere presence here was a mistake, that she shouldn't even exist. Mephiles says that Blaze is right. She can feel IBLIS inside of her, and she knows that such a beast doesn't belong in this world. That is the source of this unease haunting her soul. Blaze can hardly even speak. Mephiles keeps pushing. He says that Blaze wants to protect people, that she's a good person deep down. He says that she can protect people, that she can protect everyone, if she just lets Silver do what he needs to. Rampant emotions swirl in Blaze's head. Much of what Mephiles had said was true, but it just didn't feel right. Blaze had lived her entire life trying to get over these insecurities, these feelings that she was a monster and that the world would be better off if she simply disappeared. Mephiles was prodding at old wounds, ones Blaze had thought had healed over by now. A part of her almost wants to accept Mephiles' offer, but she can't do that. Blaze remembers what happened to Miles and Amy the last time they thought they had lost her, how hurt they were, how much they needed her. Blaze decided then and there that she would never let anyone else tell her that her life was worthless. Blaze snaps at Mephiles and Silver, saying that whatever it is they're talking about, it's all garbage. Whatever future Silver was from, it had nothing to do with her. In fact, all of it sounds like complete nonsense. Silver was just making things up as far as she was concerned. In her anger, Blaze had taken things just a little too far. The accusation that Silver was lying about his future enrages him, and he lashes out at Blaze. He declares that Blaze must be IBLIS' vessel after all, and the pair battle for a long while. Both are too blinded by their anger to settle their differences with words. The battle is fierce, one of the hardest Blaze has had in a while. Silver is easily the strongest opponent she's faced since Shadow, Sonic being discounted as he was worn down when they had their fight. However, Blaze is overall more experienced than Silver is, allowing her to get the upper hand in their battle. Silver is on the ground, defeated, and he stares up at Blaze. He says that he won't let any harm come to the future, even if it means he'll have to destroy her, and Blaze says that he'll never be able to defeat her. Silver doesn't know anything about her, and Blaze will always outpace him as long as he allows himself to be tugged around on a leash by others. Mephiles interrupts them then, saying that Blaze will live to regret her decision here today and teleports Silver away in an instant. Blaze is left alone, tired and listless. After a moment, Blaze leaves, wanting to get her mind off of this entire encounter. She starts to send a message to Amy, who's still supposed to be searching for Shadow and Rouge, but she realizes that Amy was already messaging her. While she was fighting Silver, Eggman attacks Soliana again, and while Knuckles was able to stop him from hurting any civilians, he successfully kidnapped Princess Elise. Blaze curses under her breath. This was all her fault, wasn't it? If she had handled this whole mess with Silver better, she would have been there to save IBLIS. Blaze runs off to try and save the princess, and on the way she runs into Knuckles. Knuckles says that it looks like Blaze got hit by a train and asks what happened, and Blaze recounts the events of her fight with Silver to him. She says that she got word of what had happened with IBLIS too late, but she's ready to make up for that now. She begins to run off in search of Eggman, but Knuckles stops her before she can. He says that as smart as Blaze is, she can be remarkably headstrong when she wants to be. Blaze is clearly in no shape to fight right now, and she'd only get herself or others hurt if she went. She should leave this fight to Knuckles. While Blaze wants to argue back, she knows that she can't. Blaze relents and decides to stay back and allow Knuckles to go rescue IBLIS. Somewhere else near Soliana, Silver is moping about everything that's happened. His earlier enthusiasm for the world around him had dampened slightly with how heavy everything had been lately. Getting his teeth kicked in was bad, of course, but worse was actually meeting the IBLIS trigger. Blaze wasn't what he expected at all. He imagined she'd be an evil, cruel person, like IBLIS itself, but Blaze acted nothing like that. In fact, Mephiles had appealed to her sense of decency to try and eliminate IBLIS, and it almost seemed as if Blaze had been receptive to his words. Silver just had no idea what to think anymore, and he was beginning to grow suspicious of Mephiles as well. While he's lost in thought, Silver spots Amy again. The girl had returned from her mission to locate Shadow and Rouge, unsuccessful, but she was trying to remain in high spirits. The pair talk, and Silver ends up explaining what had happened to Amy. She's taken aback by this news, of course, and almost furious at Silver for daring to try and kill Blaze. But when Silver brings up his reservations around everything, she understands that he's not a bad guy. Amy sits down next to Silver and tells him that she understands that he wants to save everyone, but he needs to have faith in other people. The only reason he would go so far as to kill Blaze is that he doesn't trust her, doesn't trust Amy's or Sonic's judgment of her character. He needs to have faith in them and things will work out, and he doesn't have to do something that desperate. Silver thinks about what she said for a moment and then decides that she's right. He's going to try and have a bit more faith in Blaze and everyone else he knows from now on. In the future, Shadow, Omega, and Rouge have found Eggman's time machine. Unfortunately, it's damaged beyond repair, and possibly not even completed. It would require expertise beyond any of them to repair it, so the time machine is a no-go. Disappointed but not discouraged, the team heads out to try and find another way into the past, and eventually, they run into Prince Sonic, who's doing the exact same thing. Rouge recognized Sonic from intel she received from Blaze, so as soon as she saw the blue blur, she insisted Shadow help track him down. They all tell each other what they know, and Sonic is livid to learn that Mephiles was even worse than he thought. He insists that they get back to the past as soon as they can, and Shadow makes a snide comment on that already being the plan. With the time machine destroyed, Rouge asks a second time about Chaos Control. At the mention of the ability, Sonic brings up what he did to be brought to this dimension in the first place. While he can't use the Soul Emeralds right now, he might be able to use this Chaos Control Shadow brought up if they find another Emerald. Shadow says that it's worth a shot, and if they really need to, they can gather all 7 Chaos Emeralds and use them to try and travel back in time. It takes a while, but they are able to track down a second Chaos Emerald thanks to Rouge's treasure hunting ability. Sonic holds the Chaos Emerald for a long moment, trying to sense its energy. He's able to feel something, but he doesn't know what it is. He says that he's not sure if he can do Chaos Control yet, but he'll give it a shot. After a few minutes, Sonic gives the technique a try and he doesn't do it, but Shadow can tell that he's close. He's just too used to the Soul Emerald's energy. It doesn't take much practice for Sonic to eventually get it down. Once he's ready, Shadow says that they should both try to do Chaos Control at the same time. The energy from the emeralds is amplified not only by how many emeralds they have, but how many people are channeling it. This will make their job much easier. Sonic and Shadow take an emerald each and are able to open a portal back into the past. They all prepare for their departure, but Omega doesn't move. He says that he's already in the past and he got to the future the normal way. It would be bad for there to be 2 versions of him in the past. He'll be there when they get to the past anyway. Rouge tells Omega to take care of himself and they all depart. Back in the present, Knuckles has made his way to Eggman's base and has ripped through it in no time. Basic badnets were no threat to him at this point, and he was mainly just concerned with making his way to Eggman and Elise as soon as possible. It does take him some time to locate them, but as soon as he does, he attacks Eggman with everything he has. Eggman tries to placate Knuckles, thinking him a fool who could be easily manipulated, but Knuckles isn't having it. He ignores everything the man says and forces Eggman to fight, making him grab one of his mechs for a proper showdown. Knuckles is eventually victorious, and he escorts Elise back to Soliana in no time. As soon as they're back in Soliana, he brings Elise to Blaze, and the pair make sure that the princess is alright. Elise says that she's fine, but then says that she has to tell them what she learned about IBLIS. She had learned about the Solaris project all on her own, and how it created IBLIS and Mephiles. IBLIS being the flames of disaster Eggman had mentioned. After the event, both IBLIS and Mephiles had been sealed away forever. Mephiles in the Scepter of Darkness and IBLIS inside a living host. She also explains that IBLIS and Mephiles are each one half of Solaris, and that if they could combine again, they would become a god with enough power to destroy all of existence. There was a wrinkle to all of this. IBLIS could only be sealed inside a member of a royal bloodline, meaning that the only person he logically could have been sealed in was Elise. Knuckles and Blaze are shocked and ask if Elise did in fact have IBLIS sealed inside of her. Elise shakes her head and says no, she's certain she does not have IBLIS sealed in her. Apparently, IBLIS could escape his host rather easily. Any outburst of emotion is an opportunity for IBLIS to escape, and IBLIS's escape from what little they knew of the creature would be something that the host would be able to see coming and potentially fight back. Elise had been through her fair share of temper tantrums as a child even after the incident, so if IBLIS were inside of her, the flames of disaster would have escaped already. Or at the very least, she would have realized something was happening. Eggman had come to the same conclusion as them, however, which is why he had attempted to kidnap Elise. Blaze has no idea what to make of this revelation. It just didn't add up. Regardless, they need to track this monster down, and they need to use all of their available resources to do so. Eventually, Blaze, Silver, Shadow, Rouge, and Sonic all gather in one spot, with the same goal in mind, stopping Mephiles and IBLIS. At least, stopping IBLIS is on all of their minds. Blaze hasn't learned of Mephiles up to this point in the story. They have a conversation, all telling each other everything they know, and they come to several revelations. Silver declares that he no longer wants to work with Mephiles after what Shadow had learned, and that he wants to rely on the others to help save the future. Everyone is pleased to hear this, and they start discussing how they should go about solving the riddle of IBLIS's disappearance. As they're talking, something strange starts to happen to Silver. He says he has a headache, which no one is concerned about at first. However, his pain gets worse and worse to the point the others are concerned for his health. Suddenly, he collapses to the ground, barely able to keep himself off of the dirt. Blaze rushes over to make sure he's okay, but when she does, Silver attacks her. Everyone is shocked, but when they look back at Silver, they notice that something strange about him. His eyes have gone completely white, dark energy emanating off of him. He laughs in someone else's voice. He speaks, saying he didn't want to have to use this backup plan, but they had been more persistent than he had originally thought. Shadow recognizes the voice instantly. Mephiles. Everyone is enraged, Sonic demanding that he give Silver back his body, and Mephiles laughs. He explains that when he teleported Silver to the past, he put a part of himself in Silver's soul, essentially sealing himself inside of the hedgehog. As time had gone on, he had taken more and more room in his heart, and he was finally in the position to take things into his own hands. Mephiles attacks them, and everyone is shocked by his power. Silver was already strong, but this level of power is something completely different. It was more comparable to one of their super forms, and even with the benefit of chaos control, they had no chance against Silver in this state. Mephiles quickly lays waste to the entire group, stealing their chaos emeralds for himself, and then he approaches Sonic sprawled out on the ground. Mephiles laughs to himself, saying that he's going to enjoy getting to take Sonic out a second time. However, before he can deliver the killing blow, he stops, his entire body seizing up. Silver, the real Silver, begins to speak. He says that he won't allow Mephiles to use him like this, and he especially won't let him kill Silver's first real friend. Silver taps into the power of the Chaos Emeralds for the first time and activates Chaos Control, sending the entire group into his future once again. They take a moment to regroup, wondering what they need to do from here. If they get a few Chaos Emeralds here in the future, they can travel back to the past, but what would they do then? Mephiles still has all 7 Chaos Emeralds in the present, and if Silver had a super form, then there was no way they could beat him without a full set of emeralds. Since one of the emeralds from Silver's future was already in Mephiles' possession, Shadow brought it back with him when they went back, they could only ever find 6 Chaos Emeralds at most. After a bit of discussion, they decided the best course of action is to go back to the creation of Mephiles and IBLIS and learn more about how to seal them away. Maybe they could learn how to make a new Scepter of Darkness and use it against Mephiles. They all set off to find the Chaos Emeralds, and along their way, they run into a familiar face, unfortunately. Mephiles approaches them, saying that their resistance is futile. Now, to be clear, this is normal Mephiles, not the Silver Mephiles who's much stronger. This is the Mephiles that had stayed around through normal time to arrive 200 years in the future, and a part of this Mephiles would later be taken back into the past by Silver when they traveled back in time. Don't you just love time travel stories? Anyway, this version of Mephiles wants to mess with Shadow a bit, and he reveals that Shadow is in the pod with absolutely no Christ imagery associated with it. Mephiles explains what he did in canon, saying that after the flames of disaster emerged, humanity blamed Shadow for it and trapped him. He asked Shadow if after everything humanity took from him, after everything they would continue to take from him, if he would continue to fight for them. Shadow is silent for a moment, and then he says no. He won't continue to fight for humanity. Instead, he'll continue to fight for the things he always has, himself and those few precious people who he knows would stand by him through everything. He shoots a small smile back at the people standing behind him, and they all launch into battle. With their combined might, they're able to defeat Mephiles, destroying this vestige of Mephiles for good. Afterward, they're able to obtain the Chaos Emerald he was guarding and have everything they need to travel back to the past. Shadow and Blaze use Chaos Control to transport the group to the day of the Solaris project, Solaris taking a backseat as Blaze has more experience with this technique. Back in the past once again, the group all witnesses the birth of Mephiles and IBLIS. Of course, things go horribly wrong, and they all work to seal them both away. Things go mostly the same with Mephiles, with Shadow and Sonic sealing him away in the Scepter, but for whatever reason, the Duke fails to seal IBLIS inside of IBLIS. IBLIS begins to escape, and Blaze and Rouge are both desperate to find a way to stop IBLIS. In a moment of panic, Blaze grabs 2 Chaos Emeralds and performs the ritual to seal IBLIS within herself, despite knowing that she isn't royalty, so there's no way it could work. However, it somehow does. Blaze successfully seals IBLIS within herself, much to her and Rouge's shock. Afterward, they all escort an unconscious Elise, the only survivor of the incident from that time, to the castle to make sure she's safe, and everyone looks at Blaze. Blaze says that she has no idea how this worked. By all accounts, she shouldn't have been able to seal IBLIS within herself. Rouge says that they probably shouldn't worry about it, but Sonic is clearly shaken. He's uncharacteristically silent, and Blaze can't help but feel guilty about the entire thing. Still, they don't have too long. Now that they know how the sealing techniques worked, Rouge thinks that they'll be able to create a new scepter to seal Mephiles within. They all return to the present, but when they get there, things are a bit weird. Sonic recognizes what's happening immediately. The same anomalies that had taken hold of the Soul Dimension were appearing in the Chaos Dimension, but far worse. Reality was starting to break at the very seams. Blaze tried to contact her allies in this time, but they don't respond. No, the messages aren't delivered at all, similar to what happened to Shadow and Rouge. Concerned, Blaze uses a quick Chaos Control in combination with her speed to go check on Miles at his college, with Shadow following her, but when she gets there, he's nowhere to be seen. Blaze, now starting to get worried, checks back at the Mystic Ruins, but when she gets there, Tails' workshop is gone. Not destroyed, it's like it never existed at all. Shadow tries to help Blaze calm down, but she takes off towards Westside Island, the place of Miles' birth, to try and figure out what's happening, and there she eventually finds Miles. Or more accurately, his grave. Miles had now apparently passed only a few short years after his birth, before Blaze could even meet him. Blaze stares at the grave, completely silent, barely able to process what's happening. While Blaze is processing this emotional blow, Shadow is piecing together what's happening on a larger scale. Shadow explains what he's figured out to Blaze. This is the cause of the anomalies across space-time. This is a paradox. Miles can't have passed before Blaze met him because Blaze has to seal IBLIS for any of this to happen in the first place, and she wouldn't have done that if Miles hadn't pushed her to become better over time. Mephiles must be traveling through time and creating these kinds of paradoxes, killing people who are necessary for the timeline to stay intact. Shadow says they have to stop Mephiles before he can destroy the entire timeline, and by doing that, they can save everyone he's killed so far. Quick bit of exposition here. While there are obviously some paradoxes already in this story, I'm imagining that in the Sonic universe, a few paradoxes here and there aren't enough to destroy reality. The issue is the scale here. Mephiles is going out of his way to cause as many paradoxes around a single point of time-space as he can, putting the maximum amount of stress on the timeline. Anyway, Blaze does her best to contain her emotions and then nods. They need to get back to work. They return to the rest of the group, and after a bit of deliberation, they decide they need to try and defeat Mephiles. While they are weaker than Mephiles in Silver's body, they didn't have a choice with how much damage was being dealt to the timeline. They take a moment to prepare themselves, taking a day to heal from their recent battles and gathering as many of their allies as they could. They get a hold of Knuckles, Amy, and Omega, and after their preparations, they time travel to right after Silver sent them into the future to fight Mephiles there. Once they appear, Mephiles gains control of Silver's body once again. He laughs to himself, saying that they're even bigger fools than he thought. They squandered the last chance to escape that Silver fought so hard to get them. Blaze says no. They're more prepared to deal with Mephiles now. Silver just gave them the chance not to escape, but to fight. Mephiles huffs and attacks. After another battle, the last combatants in fighting shape are Mephiles, Blaze, and Shadow. It's a close battle, and it looks like Blaze and Shadow may be getting the upper hand. However, as Blaze starts to run out of energy, her fatigue and desperation allow part of IBLIS's power to begin leaking from her. She's able to keep the beast contained, but more importantly, Mephiles notices IBLIS's presence. He laughs, saying that Blaze has already made the mistake he predicted she would. He says that she's absorbed IBLIS. Blaze says it doesn't matter, she's still going to end Mephiles here and now, and they begin fighting again, but something's different now. Mephiles has grown stronger, and he's easily outpacing both Blaze and Shadow now. After a few moments, he's able to defeat them, using his telekinesis to wound the both of them. Blaze gasps through the pain, barely able to contain IBLIS's power, and stammers that she doesn't know how this could happen. Mephiles is happy to explain. He says it's very simple. Silver has finally come to his senses. This entire time, he's been fighting against Mephiles, trying to regain control of his body. But learning the truth about Blaze allowed Silver to realize what really needed to be done. Just to be clear, this is an embellishment on Mephiles' part. Learning the truth merely made Silver conflicted about how he should act, and having his focus broken like that made it so that he could no longer properly stop Mephiles from taking over his body. That was the last advantage Mephiles needed to win this fight. Mephiles moves in for the finishing blow, and Blaze acts on instinct. She erupts into a massive pillar of flame, pushing Mephiles back. Now IBLIS's power is leaking out of Blaze constantly, her focus completely broken. It will only be a few moments before IBLIS escapes her, and Blaze, on some level, recognizes that. With whatever time she has left, Blaze channels all of IBLIS's power, reaching into Silver's soul and grabbing a hold of Mephiles. With her and IBLIS's power combined, Blaze is able to rip Mephiles outside of Silver, and she attacks him, channeling IBLIS's flames to destroy Mephiles in a matter of seconds. However, once she's done, the flames just keep coming. Blaze is getting hotter and hotter, hotter than she's ever been before, and it's finally too much. Blaze passes out, but it doesn't stop. IBLIS escapes Blaze, leaving nothing but a husk of the girl behind. Shadow runs over to Blaze, ignoring his injury, and pulls her to the side. However, he soon realizes that it's too late. Blaze is gone. While Shadow is trying to help Blaze, everyone else is still trying to figure out what to do. Silver is starting to come around again, but he's too groggy to fight. IBLIS is still rising to its full height, about to ravage the world, and everyone prepares to fight it, despite being well past their limits. However, Silver interrupts them. He says that this must be what led to his timeline, and if they destroy IBLIS now, it'll only ensure a bad future for the world. They have to find a way to seal IBLIS away again. Rouge says that the only way to do that is for someone with royal blood to step in, and asks if Sonic could handle IBLIS's power. Sonic is completely silent, for a reason only Amy knows, but after a moment, he smiles. He says he'll give it a shot. Amy tries to stop him, saying that if this fails, trying to seal IBLIS within himself will likely kill him, but Sonic just laughs. His laugh is hollow, almost bitter. He says that he'll be dead if he doesn't try anyway. Besides, he wants to do this. Sonic grabs two Chaos Emeralds, body shaking. He steels himself, saying that he is a prince. He knows he is, even if no one else does. With that, he begins performing the ritual with everyone else looking on in awe. It's painful and trying, but Sonic can feel his will overpowering IBLIS's. The creature is pulled into him, into his soul, and it stays there, resting. It's over. Everyone takes a long moment to observe the wreckage around them, and Sonic laughs again. That was easier than I thought. Sonic's voice lacks the mirth his words would imply. There's a collective sigh of relief as everyone is finally convinced that things are going to be alright, despite the many sacrifices they had to make along the way. However, before they can properly recover, Sonic hears something. It's a laugh. He turns around to see who it is, but there's no one behind him. Then the voice speaks. "You're even more of a fool than I thought, Prince Sonic." Everyone freezes, turning to Sonic, the source of the sound. Sonic has frozen, slowly piecing together what's happened. He doesn't have time to explain it to anyone else, though. "So, did you forget how you came here, Sonic? Did you forget that you're only here because I wanted you to be? I suppose it was good to have another failsafe in store, in case Silver let me down once again. You, however, have exceeded all of my expectations. Not only did you safely harbor my soul, you even went through the trouble of recombining me with my other half. You really are something special, Sonic the Hedgehog." With an eruption of power, IBLIS and Mephiles combine within Sonic, forming Solaris. Sonic's body is taken over like Silver before him, and with a cry the strength of which no one present had ever witnessed, Solaris shatters reality around them. Everything starts to break down. Gravity, space, time, all natural laws suddenly cease to apply as the world itself tilts in a direction with no name. This chaotic swell of energy and matter is almost impossible to stop, and it's likely they all would have died if it weren't for the intervention of a single strange man. "You lousy rodents, always ruining my plans." Eggman yells at them from a strange machine. The vehicle's arms reach out and grab all of them, scooping them up and putting them inside. The interior of the vehicle is seemingly unaffected by Solaris' reality warping, and to everyone's surprise, Elise is there. Eggman tells them all to sit down before he pilots them away from the area, leaving Solaris behind. Once they're inside, Shadow asks Eggman what he's doing and what this machine is. Eggman says it's essentially a vehicle that houses its own pocket dimension, one where they're safe from what Solaris is doing to the outside world. Eggman built it after Mephiles had started making his own moves. Eggman had tried to control his fair share of eldritch deities, and he knows when to cut his losses and declare them his enemy. Shadow asks why he saved them, and Eggman says that he's not going to be in a position to stop that thing, or at least not yet. He thought he'd have more time, but after they stupidly allowed Solaris to form, he had to expedite his plans. With that, Eggman stops piloting the vehicle and walks over to his defeated rival. Blaze's body is on the ground, Amy cradling it in her arms, sobbing. Eggman is silent for a moment before snarling. "Despicable. Does Mephiles really think he'll get away with stealing my greatest rival away from me? We'll avenge Blaze and make Solaris rue the day he ever dared to lift a finger against you, and especially against the Eggman Empire. His speech is more rousing than they would have expected, but it does little to comfort Amy. The girl knew she had to be strong for the sake of the world, but after everything that had happened, after losing Blaze a second time and seeing so many of her friends hurt and toyed with, she just couldn't take it anymore. Amy allowed herself to sob openly, to be weak for a single moment. Elise reached out to Amy, saying that, while she doesn't want to get the girl's hopes up, there may be a way to save Blaze still. Everyone turns to her, and Elise says that she's heard that Blaze has been able to achieve a super form with the Chaos Emeralds in the past, and everyone confirms that she has. Elise says that in her studies, she's heard of a ritual that can allow them to revive someone who's used the Chaos Emeralds in that way. The emeralds essentially hold a copy of Blaze's soul, similar to how the Master Emerald held Tikal's, and the ritual could allow them to revive Blaze. However, you could only ever use the ritual on someone once, and it didn't always work. If this failed, then Blaze would truly be lost forever. Eggman says that there's no reason not to give it a shot and turns back to his command console. He can locate the Chaos Emeralds, but it'll be up to the rest of them to find them. Everyone agrees, and they spend some time tracking down the emeralds through the shattered remains of space-time. It takes a while, but it's not a big deal for them. Once they find them all, Elise begins the ritual aboard Eggman's vehicle. She says that besides all 7 Chaos Emeralds, they need a gesture of love from whoever's closest to Blaze. Romantic, familial, platonic, it doesn't matter what kind. All that matters is the strength of the bond. As Miles is currently lost to a paradox, Amy is the obvious choice for this ritual. The girl steps forward, shaking as she holds back tears. She's not sure what to do, so she starts speaking as the Chaos Emeralds swirl around them. You know, Blaze, I know you don't quite feel the same way about me that I do you. I can always tell that sometimes I got on your nerves or annoyed you, but no matter what, you were still there for me, even when no one else was. You talked to me, spent time with me, listened to all my silly problems, and did everything you could to help me. I always thought that no matter what happened, you'd always be there for me. And you were, as much as you could be. I'll always love you, and I know that even if it's not the same, you always loved me too. As Amy finishes her speech, lip trembling, she reaches out to hug Blaze, the person who she cared about above anyone else. The Chaos Emeralds shine with a bright light, engulfing the two of them. Before their eyes, Blaze's body is restored to its original form. They all stare at her for a long moment, waiting to see her move. Amy considers going forward and checking for a pulse, checking to see if she's breathing, but she can't stand the thought of the ritual having failed. After a moment of suspense, Blaze stirs. Slowly, she pushes herself up, asking everyone what happened, but they don't answer her. Instead, Amy rushes up for another hug, crying against Blaze's shoulder, and everyone else lets Blaze know that they're happy she's alive again in their own way. Even Eggman can't help but smile. Blaze eventually figures out what happened, and she hugs Amy back. She promises she's done having close calls. Blaze won't leave her again. After enough time has passed, Eggman rudely interrupts the moment by clearing his throat. Now, this is all very touching, but if you haven't noticed, there's an insane hedgehog about to rip everything into shreds out there, and that does include us. Could we maybe focus on the task at hand? Blaze glares at Eggman, but she agrees. She stands, looking at Shadow and saying that their super forms are the best bet they have at the moment. Silver butts in, saying that he doesn't quite know what that is, but he's pretty sure Mephiles did something like that with his body earlier, and Blaze smiles. Good. With the 3 of them, there's no way Solaris stands a chance. The 3 grab a hold of the Chaos Emeralds and begin channeling their power and achieving their super forms. With that, they depart from the safety of Eggman's vehicle and get ready to battle Solaris. Now, I really hope this isn't that much of a letdown, but I don't really have a great way to get fights across in this format. All I can really say is that eventually they're able to defeat Solaris and destroy it for good. Just imagine that a suitably epic final boss fight happens here. Afterward, time is still relatively fractured, and Eggman proposes one final way to fix everything. Everyone's a bit nervous about it, but they decide to give it a chance. Blaze uses Chaos Control to travel to the past with IBLIS, back to the day of the Solaris project, and to the small flame that would eventually grow into this entire disaster. If they blew this flame out, all of the events that led to this moment would be impossible, and via Eggman's calculations, it should wipe out everything that took place here, paradoxes included. IBLIS holds the candle and admits that she's nervous. Blaze says that while she doesn't trust Eggman, the man is smart and self-interested. He wouldn't lie to them about this, but IBLIS shakes her head. She says she's not nervous about all of that. She's nervous about what will happen to them. While it has been scary, IBLIS has liked spending time with all of them. She's kind of lonely, truth be told, and she felt like she would miss having them as friends. Or she would if she could remember them at all. She'd be losing something and wouldn't even know it. How sad is that? Blaze understands and says that from what she knows of IBLIS, the girl is strong. She's strong enough to find more people who see her for who she truly is, eventually. Maybe after all of this, they'll meet up again. IBLIS smiles and thanks Blaze for her kind words. Then she blows out the candle and everything goes black. Blaze wakes up in her bed, back at the agency. Her head is foggy and strange memories are going through her mind. She's not sure if it's just a dream or if it was real, but she remembers meeting a lot of new people, remembers dying and coming back, remembers so much, but it's just out of reach. She walks around the agency, waving to the Chaotix as they argue over breakfast, until she runs into Amy. Amy's eyes are wide when she sees Blaze. Amy asks quietly if Blaze had a weird dream last night, and Blaze says that she did. That's enough confirmation for the both of them to understand what happened. Blaze laughs to herself. It's all over now. Things were back to normal. Blaze walks over to the table where the Chaotix are eating and takes the newspaper away from Vector. He complains, but Blaze says that she just needs to check the date real quick. The Festival of the Sun is happening in Soliana in just a few days, and she says that they should all plan a trip there to celebrate their recent successes. Blaze hears that it's a lovely country. Quick thanks to all my channel members: Fate Testarossa, Joseph Florian, Megasonic Bros, Tenishi Mudyasrisa, Bokabara, Agent B7, and Elric111.